Yeah, it's your boy Chile here. Time for your monthly update. As you could probably tell, there have been no videos this month. And, for that, we can blame the usual suspects, work, and, kid and family, of course. There's also a couple of new challengers that have come to the table. My mom is in from Canada. She came in last week. She's going to be here for 3 weeks total. So you gotta make hay while the sun is shining there. And the other thing, well, I guess you could probably guess what that is based on what I'm putting on the screen, but we can talk about that a little later. So yeah, no videos, and that means, again, not going to get dinged on the Patreon for all you supporters out there. Thank you so much for your support and everything. And this month, nothing because there was nothing. But that doesn't mean, that nothing happened at all, of course. So let's take a look at what little progress I made over this month. And that'll be a fun little thing. So the first thing I did is I added a little support for keyboard input. And the reason why, by the way, this is just something very sketchy that is probably not going to look anything like this in the final product. But I just wanted some keyboard input so I could do some more interesting testing, especially with camera control. So I made it so that you can, pipe in a camera transform and that gets applied to all the sprites. And then you can kind of move around. All right, so here's what it looks like with the input. You press space, you can spawn in a bunch of sprites, and then you got your WAS to move the camera around. Your rotation with Q and E, and R and F lets you zoom in. Beautiful. Yeah, and that's all it is. And you can see here that, our transform, we got transforms applied per sprite here. You can see they're all in different orientations. And then we've got the camera transform applied to all of them. So that input stuff allowed me to implement the camera control here, just, again, piping in this transform that we build up somewhere around here. Here we go. We'll build up the transform here, pipe that in. The set camera function, which had existed before but was not implemented. Next thing is stuff that I talked about in the previous update video, which is like adding a depth buffer. Seeing if using depth preventing overdraw can maybe improve the performance. Did not really improve the performance. If you add the depth to this thing, that's going to create a problem because it was using alpha to do the transparency stuff. And if you know anything about depth and alpha, you know that they often have problems with each other. So what you would end up with is the clear part of the alpha writing to the depth buffer. And then nothing else could get written over top of that, and that would kind of mess up your composition. So what you have to do there is, you have to discard a pixel if its alpha is equal to 0, and that way it's not going to write the depth. I guess the other way to do this would be to set the depth value in. That doesn't make any sense. But either way, if we're going to discard the pixel like this, and if we don't actually have any alpha blending, because if you do have alpha blending, by the way, the translucency, you've got to basically sort your sprites. So if we don't have that, then we could just turn off blending altogether, and that could be an optimization. It doesn't have to do that work on the GPU. But I did this, and it didn't seem to have a big performance impact, neither the depth nor the alpha stuff. And that kind of jives with my suspicions that we were, CPU limited. So the next step is, let's try moving some more work to the GPU, specifically the per instance transformations. So let's just take a look at what the performance is like before we do the per instance transformations. So again, this is transforming the vertices all on the CPU and then just uploading that to the GPU to be rendered. So here we got our sprites working. The numbers are going to be not as good as the ones that I get when I'm not recording, but let's see what it says. 6160, it's not that far off. The GPU power is actually higher than what I normally see, but we can see it's not maxed out because I think the max is like 240. Utilization is also a little higher, but we're definitely not maxed out on the GPU because we're not hitting 240 watts. And we're at 60 frames per second. Let's take a look at what the CPU is saying here. So CPU is going up to like 8.8, 8.6. But yeah, it's like peaking at almost 9%. So this is with doing everything on the CPU. Again, you know, about 63 frames per second. So now we move the workload to the GPU. How do we do that? Well, in the vertex shader now, instead of just taking in the position and the texture coordinate, a few things, we're going to also take in the translation, the scale, and the rotation. And then we're going to build the per object transform matrix in here, concatenate that with the camera transform, and then apply that to every vertex. So now our input layout taking a lot more in here, and we're not building up, doing all this matrix work on the CPU. We're now just going to pass in more stuff to the GPU in the vertex data. So we're going to be putting that in here, looping over all 4 vertices and just copying in the position, the rotation, the scale, and the translation. And there might be interesting things we could do with instancing or indirect command lists with this stuff, but for now this is going to be fine. Now you might notice here the name of the commit is "this shit don't work," which it did not. And I was like, all right, so it was messing up my transform. My sprites were getting all weirdly distorted and just stretched, butthole stretched out to infinity. And so I was like, okay, well, I got to debug this. And I did spend some time, because you can't use the Visual Studio debugger with 12. So I was like, well, this is an opportunity. I'll look into Pix. And I figured out a little bit about how Pix was working, but I still wasn't able to really find the issue. And, you know, stretched for time as it is in my day is kind of like, so this is where things really stalled. And then, you know, Red Skittle Fox, those of you who know, you know, those of you from the Discord, the man needs no introduction. He was like kind of needling me, like, hey, when's the next update on the Chill engine coming? And I'm like, kind of, you know, I got stuck on some debugging stuff and I'm a little bit demotivated, and I'll figure it out eventually. And he was like, well, just push the branch, come on, do it, just do it. So I pushed the branch. You could find this experimental branch on the GitHub if you're interested, by the way. But my boy, he set to it and he found the problem. It was, I told him it was probably something dumb, and it was something dumb. Basically, the matrix that I build here is just transposed, right? Because of the way, you know, how things, row major versus column major, that sort of stuff, always screws me. And I even considered this as an option, but I like squinted at it, I guess, and I was like, it's probably fine. So anyways, you know, your boy, Red Skittle Fox, he came through in a big way, and we got to give him big ups, big props, because this update video is dedicated to Red Skittle Fox. Now, your boy Skittles, he seems like very motivated to contribute to this project. So I'm thinking we're in negotiations, but he might become, you know, the next major contributor after yours truly. So we'll see. This is good stuff, but I'm hoping to make this more of like a community project going forwards, and having a second guy is like the next biggest step towards bringing it out to everyone, right? If it's just one guy, it's kind of hard to get in there, but once you got like 2 guys going, then it's a lot easier to get that 3rd and 4th in there, you know. So we'll see, but I'm excited. I'm excited to collaborate if we can. Now, let's take a look at the performance when we move everything over to the GPU. So again, caveat, it's not what you get when you got OBS running. It's different. But right away, when I bring this boy to the foreground, all right, well, this is a little underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. This is not what I get when I'm not running OBS. So when I'm not running OBS, I'm getting like 85 frames per second versus 65 frames per second. And I'm not seeing that here. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I checked out the correct commit and I built it. So this is not indicative, unfortunately. I can't record it and show you at the same time. But we do see that more GPU's power is being drawn. Utilization is lower. When I'm doing this without OBS running, GPU utilization is up to like 95%, and power is up to 240 watts. So it's maxing out my GPU, and I'm very clearly GPU limited, and I'm very clearly getting more FPS. Yeah, so you can see here, before we were going up, we were peaking at like 9%. off mostly in the 8% range, and now we're dipping even down into the 5%. So we definitely offloaded a bunch of work from the CPU onto the GPU. And although you can't see in here, that did translate into a sizable FPS increase. For me, it was like almost, like 30% increase, which is significant. And that's interesting now, because now that opens the door for other things. Like, well, before we were CPU limited, so we didn't see any differential when we, turned, for example, Z buffering on or off. But now that we are GPU limited, we could probably see the effects of those different settings, those different tweaks, like how we do alpha blending or how we do Z buffering, etc. So that would be interesting to play with later on. It would be, what I really want to do is put a command line interface into here so that you can, add like a list of command line arguments here to switch on and off and quickly test all the different permutations of different settings. But we'll get there one step at a time. But this was very nice. We've at least been able to move stuff from the CPU to the GPU, and it does seem like a significant improvement. So that's probably the way that we are going to go in the future. An interesting side note, by the way. So on my workstation for work, one of my many workstations, I have an Arc 750 GPU, and I ran this on there, and unexpectedly, it completely kicks my RTX's butt, my 2080 Ti's butt, which it should not do, because it's like a budget kind of card. Like, it retails like for like $250. You can get it for like $199, and like my Ti, when I got it was like $1,000. And even if you look at the benchmarks, like the Ti is kicking the Arc's butt. But for this, like, just jamming out tons of sprites, the Arc completely cleans the floor with my RTX. So it's interesting how like those different kinds of workloads affect different GPUs. And it also kind of gets my mind running, like with the CPU versus GPU stuff as well. Like this ability to inject at runtime using these virtual interfaces. So like, for example, the sprite batcher interface, right? And it can be implemented in different ways. It could do more work on the CPU versus more on the GPU. You could have a bunch of different implementations. The ability to have those hot swappable at runtime means at runtime, you could profile them quickly. Like, you could, in the settings, you could put like a little button, like, tune the performance. And what it'll do is it'll quickly run a benchmark with a bunch of different configurations. And then it will pick the one that has the best performance on your machine, which is not something that you could do easily if this was all statically linked in. So, it's getting the gears working, some cool stuff that we could look at in the future. But anyways, that's where we're at right now. Now, as I've threatened, let me just quickly talk about the other thing that has been consuming, some of my free time. Your boy Chili has been gaming. Yes, I know, it's so foreign, such a foreign concept, playing games, video games, computer games. But yeah, I've been a little absorbed in Factorio, and you might be like, Factorio? Cracktorio? Isn't that like 2010? Isn't that like a 2010 kind of John? And I'm like, yeah, I beat that in 2010, but I got there's a new hotness. It's not that new, but it's new to me. So there's like this crazy mod called Space Exploration. And it allows you to like build bases in space and on other planets, and like build and fly spaceships and other cool shit. And it also makes the game, like the scale of the game, just totally different. Like, it makes the original vanilla Factorio like a child's toy. It's like some kind of mobile game you play on the train. So here's my base so far. I've just been kind of trying to scale it up. I've been moving from my bus that I used to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Bootstrap. I use this bus to kind of like bootstrap my base and get me into space. And now I'm scaling things up with these city blocks and trains and stuff. And it's fun. It's cool. I've been spending time on this, But your boy Chili, all work and no fun makes Chili a dull boy. So I gotta have my fun here. But yeah, so this mostly just looks similar to like normal Factorio. I mean, if you're familiar, if you're in the know. But you might notice some like strange things, like what the heck is this thing? And why do you got so many goddamn turbines, Chili? What the hell is this big ass drill just drilling into the center of the planet? That's some cool stuff. But the really neat shit happens when you go. Let me just show you here. Let's just take a little trip. There we go. We're blasting off. And we'll just let this launch sequence play out here. Normally I would like load this up with a bunch of junk, but we'll just fly empty. And then for some reason, like just a bunch of boxes fly into your landing pad, which is a little strange, but okay, that's cool, I guess. And here's my space, my orbital platform. It's currently stalled because it needs some blue circuits to get working. I could have probably brought those with me, but whatever. But yeah, here's where you make your space science. And right now I'm researching the atomic bomb. But yeah, like if you're familiar with Factorio, you'll notice there's a lot more science that you need to get some of these things. It's pretty insane. But I'm loving it. So that's where I'm at. And the other thing you can do, you're not just limited to this orbital. Like you got all these different planets and moons that you can land on. And I have a little base here. Oh, we're out of power because it's only solar power, and right now the sun is down. But here's my little mining outpost where I mine my vulcanite, or whatever this stuff is called. I forget what it's called. But yeah, that's what I've been doing, and it's been a lot of fun. And you know, I'll get it out of my system, and then more time will be spent on Planet Chili stuff. But until then, you know, we're just gonna kind of putter along, and we'll do what we can do. I got a few more, you know, features I want to add in, and like I said, I'd like to get the command line in there and then do a little bit of testing of all the different configurations, see what works in which way. And I would like to test doing more virtualization and seeing what the performance cost of that is, because right now we can see that we're pretty GPU limited in our best performance configuration, which means we still got plenty of gas left in the tank for you know, virtualizing the calls basically free, because the CPU is just spending time idle anyways. And if we can virtualize more things, that makes the framework itself a lot more powerful in its customization and its usability. So that'll be cool. That's what we're gonna work with. And once I get all my experiments done and everything, I'll try to draft out how I think the architecture of all the components will work, and then we'll see what that. Maybe I'll throw it to Fox, Red Skittle Fox, and we'll see. Maybe do a little code review. Give me his ideas. We can polish it off, and once it's all polished, then the videos will start. Then finally we'll open the floodgates. Videos will come out, and we will officially add new components to the Chill framework. But until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click the like button. Helps a lot. And I will see you again with, you know, probably another update video. We'll see.